Okay, so we're going to go slightly more advanced into pole fishing now. I think I've done some fishing on whips and things like that. I've never actually explained what a top kit is and why we use different rigs, and try and briefly go through the rigs. And you might see the match anglers here with these. This is what you call a top kit, and you might find some match anglers here with 6 or even 8 top kits behind them. You think, why do they need all those floats? You know, they can only use one at a time, but they all do different jobs. Let me explain. We've got a top kit involves your rig, and it involves a bit of elastic that goes through your pole. And this is a pole pot you can use for feeding. I'll put that on or off. There's all different manners and forms of these. So you might have half a dozen. You're fishing here. You'll have you might be fishing here, and you'll have a spot, say just by the lily pads down there, and you might have another spot over there by those reeds, another spot out in the deep water. You might have as many as 5 different positions that you might want to fish, and there will be different depths, depths of the water. You may be fishing at different depths for the fish themselves, and you might be actually looking for different species of fish as well. So if you're looking to catch, say, tench and small carp and things off the lily pads, then you'll want a heavier elastic. So you'll have a top kit with a thicker elastic in it. This is a light elastic, but this is like a roachy elastic. But you'll have a heavy elastic there, because otherwise you get a bigger fish, it can take you under the lily pads, it's going to snag you, you're going to lose your fish. So, but if you're fishing for smaller fish out in the open water, then you might want to fish a softer elastic, because a small fish, if you've got a really heavy elastic, it'll bounce on the elastic, feel that resistance so much, and it just sort of spring the hook out. So you want to take it's nice and soft so the hook stays in, and you can play them in without them falling off, because you may have been fishing before and hooking little roach and they keep falling off as you bring them in. And the reason why I do that is because you haven't really got a soft enough elastic, and you haven't managed to keep that line tight enough. So let me show you quickly the different rigs. This is quite a light rig. I've got a size 22 hook on this one, and this one I would normally start at the beginning of the match with, just to see what's happening. This should catch about everything that swims. If a fish are biting, you're going to get a bite on this rig, and it's not what I would call a positive rig. I've got these shots. I use style leads. I think they're a little bit more advanced shots. A lot of match anglers don't even bother with style leads now, but I do. There's like the elongated shots. They do a stot now, which is a little bit bigger than this, but style leads, I love them. I used to use them years ago, and never gone off them. So what I'll do is I'll string them out, and then when I cast in, the float will settle nice and slowly all the way through the water, and the float will set up nice and slowly. And if you're going to get a bite, you'll get a bite either on the drop or on the bottom, and it will give you an indication where your fish are, up in the water, or if they're on the deck or whatever, or most of all if they're feeding, because your feeding pattern is the most important thing about your fishing. And I think myself, it's important to see how the fish are feeding first before you start throwing loads of grub at them. If you know what it's like, then you can say, okay, right, I can put 10 balls of ground bait in to start with. But sometimes you put 10 balls of ground bait in, fish ain't feeding, it's your day over, because once you put it in, you can't take it out, and that's the old saying. So this is my little light rig, and I would normally use this when it's a bit difficult, and when the fish are hanging around in mid-water, they don't want to come up, they don't want to go down, they're hanging around in mid-water. You do a little bit of loose feeding over the top of it, and they might intercept your bait, as it's falling through the water, and you'll nick one or two like that. So this is that one. So and then if they are on the deck, then you might want to use a rig a little more like this. And again, I've got the style leads, but if they're on the deck, I'll bring all my style leads down like that, so that when I put the rig in, that lead will take the bait through closer to the bottom. Then I'll have a little light drop, just a couple of little leads below that. And if the fish are on the bottom, you've managed to nail the fish on the bottom where you might be wanting to catch them on the day, then that rig will probably be better. So it's a little heavier rig, and you can go heavier than this if you want. Now you can use a little gadget we call an Olivetti, and anything from about a half gram float upwards, I would use an Olivet on. I wouldn't use style lead. So from half gram upwards, I'll put an Olivet in, and that just takes the bait straight through the water. Because quite often you might find you get little roach and little perch and that pestering you up in the top of the water, where your bigger fish are laying nearer the deck. In that case, I would use a more positive rig like this, and that's probably your standard sort of rig. And then other days you'll be getting fish coming up in the water, again, you can catch fish from that deep to that deep up in the water, and you really need sort of 3 rigs to do that. This one has still got a caster on it. This one is quite a positive rig again, strung out, but just fished a little bit shallower, so I can bring that float down to a couple of foot if I want to. Quite a nice positive rig. You put it out there, it's got quite a big hook in it. If they're having it, that could work. If they're coming up higher than that, then this is a great little rig. This is what I call like a little dibbing type of rig, and this is shallower. And again, just one little shot down the line, just really to sink that float. So you go out there, a bit of loose feed over the top of it, and that will just sink nice and slowly in the top level of the water, and hopefully then we're going to get the fish coming up for it. And let me try and explain this. If you've got a rig, especially in mid-water, you always have difficulty catching fish in mid-water. And my theory on it is that if your hook is laying like at the level what the fish are feeding at, as they come up to it, then they're going to bump their nose on the line, okay? And they can feel that and then swim away before you even indicated a bite. If they're coming up to the bait from underneath, right, they're going to take the bait without bumping their nose on it, and then they'll turn to go back to where they originated, and that gives you a bite, and you can actually get them to hook themselves like that. Similarly, when you're fishing on the deck, a lot of people say they fish in dead depth, so they've just got the maggot or the bait just sitting on the bottom, okay? I don't think that is generally the case. I think when people plumb up, they actually plumb up a little bit deeper than what they think, and they've got the bait actually laying on the bottom, because that's how you want it. You need a couple of inches of line laying on the bottom, so the fish can actually come down and suck that hook up without it actually bumping on their nose on the line. So if you're fishing in mid-water, where they're laying at mid-water, that's normally a tricky place to hit bites. You miss bites and all sorts of things. You get line bites, fail hookers and all that sort of thing. So you want to either get them on the deck or on the top. And on a really good day, if they're really coming up in the water, then you don't need a float. I normally just put a poly ball on, and I can fish as shallow as I like, and I can bring this poly ball right down onto my hook length as I like and fish that deep. And when they're like that, you just hold a tight line, so just that poly ball, you just hold it, you try and hold it 1/4 of an inch off the top of the water. That keeps you a nice tight line. And then when they come up, they'll hook themselves, and then you won't see a bite, you'll just see your elastic coming out. And happy days, when it's like that, you're going to win. But that's 5 of the rigs that I would use in a match, especially over at Redbridge Lakes. And yeah, I could go on for years about the different types and ways you can catch fish in. There's lots of anglers do lots of different things with different rigs and whatever. But if you wonder why there's all them top kits behind them, that's basically what it's all about. So I hope that helps a little bit.